Just look at that. All that green and pleasant land. And I've driven here in a 750 horsepower car that can do 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds, and I've disturbed precisely nothing. Electric power, there's a lot to be said for it. And it's not like this looks like it's going to deliver supercar speed. It's a crossover. Look, you can tell because it's got shiny plastic bits here and stone guards down there. But it's not really a crossover, is it? It's Porsche's crossover, the new Taycan Cross Turismo. Think of the Cross Turismo as Porsche's Audi Allroad, and you're on the right lines. It's a raised, toughened, bigger-booted version of their first all-electric car, the Taycan. Underneath, the powertrains, chassis and suspension are near identical, but it comes across as a surprisingly different car. So let's use the driving modes to tell that story. And we'll start on range. Now, range is the least interesting driving mode because it restricts you to 60 miles an hour and it turns the air conditioning off. Porsche claim 270, 280 miles of range for this, and it's pretty much the same no matter which of the power outputs you choose because the battery stays the same size. It's a 93.5 kilowatt hour battery, and the usable bit of that is 84 kilowatt hours. So that's a decent sized battery, but you're only going to get 200 miles of range from it in ordinary use. And after that, you're at the liberty of the charging network. And the likelihood is that you're probably going to want to drive your Cross Turismo further than you would your normal Taycan, because it's the family car, isn't it? You know, you put the kids in the back, put some holiday clobber, you might well stick a roof box on top. That's not going to do your range any good, is it? Normal mode. It's really smooth and progressive and nice. There's more suspension travel than there is in a regular Taycan. Although the suspension is exactly the same as it is in any other Taycan, they've softened it a bit with the wheel mounts and the anti-roll bars. So it just feels a little more accommodating and slick and smooth across the ground. When you turn it into corners though, and I'm only in normal mode at the moment, you get a little bit of roll, which you don't in the Taycan. The standard Taycan feels very direct and like it doesn't roll at all. So you can nose it into corners very, very precisely. This, and I think it's completely in keeping with the kind of car it is, but you can cut that out. Let's go for sport mode. Sport mode, sharper throttle, more cause to use the brakes. And we will talk about the brakes actually, because Porsche doesn't believe in one pedal systems. It thinks you have to use the brakes. So even if you put on the brake regeneration, you don't get a lot of brake. You have to use the pedal to actually get it to slow down. Porsche has completely overspecified the brakes for the Turbo S Cross Turismo. They're carbon ceramics, the front discs are 420mm, the rears are 410, and they're grabbed by 10 piston calipers. I mean, they're phenomenally powerful. And the irony is that you barely ever use them. Up to, I think it's 0.3 G, that's all done by the motors. Only after that do the wheel brakes get used. You can go so quickly cross-country and smoothly. That's the key to it, I think, is that it doesn't feel like you're working the car very hard. For passengers, it feels like a very, very smooth ride. But tell you what, let's go for Sport Plus. That puts the dampers in the firmest of their 3 settings. And I don't know if you can hear that, but that also engages the sport sound. And in terms of the speed it can deliver, honestly, it's too quick. I really like this car. I really, really like this car. It just jets between the corners so capably. So you compare it to other fast estates, you know, compare it to an RS6 or something like that. And I think this has got the chassis balance and dexterity to beat that. It feels a lighter car, which is weird to me. But it is only when you go bananas in it, suddenly you become aware of how much weight it's coping with. So you end up just carrying speed in it. And this is still in Sport Plus mode. So where do you go from here?
Well, there's a reason why the Cross Turismo has an extra 20mm of ground clearance, additional body cladding, and those optional stone guards.
The Taycan Cross Turismo has a gravel mode. Ready? It's got smoke coming up from all four wheels on gravel. So here we are doing 75 miles an hour up a dirt track. Fun and games at Sweet Lamb. Doesn't get better than this. I'm amazed how together it feels round here. It's just the torque out of corners and the instantness of it. So you can really, there you go, just hold it. You can hold the steering wheel pretty much straight while this thing just rockets off. It's got 50-50 weight distribution, but when it starts porpoising front and rear, it behaves like each axle is levering against the other. And that's a 911 trait, but it's noticeable on the road, or more noticeable on the road than it is here, because here it's all loose and you're just sort of playing around and dicking about with it. There you go. But what I'm amazed at also is, A, how together it sounds. I mean, there's no creaks or rattles from it anywhere. And B, how good that power distribution is. Drifting off camber corners at Sweet Lamb in an electric estate car. Just terrific. In an electric car, this just feels weird. Feels a bit wrong. Makes no noise. And cars that don't make noise, it's really hard. If you're trying to drive quickly or on the loose, do you want that noise from the drivetrain so you know how much traction you've got, what the grip is, how hard the engine's working, all that stuff. And with electric, you don't really get it. It's just got so much traction and grip. Makes me think what a rally car one of these would be like. Apart from out of range after 100 miles, the handling balance of this car, absolutely spot on. You'd never do this in a Taycan, but here in this, it feels born to do it. Look at this though. Yes, just feed it round there. I'm amazed by this actually, because it feels quite stiffly suspended in gravel mode when you raise the suspension up. It's still got a bit of sway, but you can play with that balance so well. Look, no Taycan Cross Turismo owner is ever going to do this with their car. But isn't it cool to know that it can do it? This, well, it's just a family estate car, isn't it? But those brakes, I have to say, they're tremendous, but they are so powerful that with a bit of left foot braking for the corners, you're almost getting too much bite from them. Taycan Cross Turismo on gravel. Who knew this would be one of my best driving events of the last year or more? I love this car. I love how smooth, how capable it is, how beautifully engineered it is. How well it rides. The ride's fabulous. I really, really like this car. More than that, I bloody love it. I absolutely love it. I'm so impressed with what it can do.
But in order to function as a family car, the 4-strong Cross Turismo range, which starts at 80 grand and runs up to this Turbo S at 140 grand, needs to be capable of more than just rally stage heroics.
Right, while I'm in here, let me show you around the cabin a bit. It's got a lovely, lovely driving environment, beautiful steering wheel, lovely to hold, and the seats are perfect. In the driving position, I just can't fault it. And you can actually understand the screens mostly in this and operate them. There's a lot of them though, including one on the passenger side, which I'm sure isn't standard. And then the rest of the cockpit, the only thing, it's a beautifully, beautifully built car. The only thing that bugs me is this little line of stitching here, which doesn't quite perfectly follow the arc of the curve. Apart from that though, it's got space, it's really comfortable, can't fault it. Right, let's have a look under the bonnet where, when I can open it from the key, you'll find an 84-litre storage area. So it's just like a 911 under here. You'll get more than your cables in there if you want to. I know I've talked about this before, but look at the size of those brakes. 420mm discs and 10 piston calipers. When they get hot, they have so much power and bite, they really can bring 2,300 kilos of Cross Turismo under control. You've got double wishbone front suspension and it's adaptive air suspension, so it's air springs and you can vary the ride height. Charging, look, you wipe your finger under there and up she goes. So you've got 2 charging ports, one this side and one the other side. This one is your home charger, the one the other side is the direct current, it's the fast charger, up to 270 kilowatts, can hose charge into the car really fast. Going to need to be using one of these soon because I'm down to about 36% battery. Right, rear seats, this is going to be important for you, I suspect. So there's no more legroom than there is in the standard Taycan because the whole car's only 11mm longer overall. But you get 34mm of extra headroom, and that does really improve the feeling of space in the back of the car. You'll notice though, there's only 2 chairs in the back of this at the moment. You can have a 3-seat bench instead. And then the boot. Press a button on the outside, up it goes. You've got a lot of space in here, a lot of depth in here. So you've got up to 1,171 litres of space overall if you fold the back seats down. It's not as big as an RS6 or an E63, but you'd probably cope. 2 things to be aware of though. This angle here means you've got quite a shallow angle, so you cut down the load space. And also, the width of the boot isn't big, and you've got an enormous amount of space from the side of the boot through to the edge of the car. But who cares about boot space when it looks this good? I mean, I thought it looked good clean, but covered in a layer of rally muck, it looks fantastic. Speaking of which, I think one more layer of rally muck is probably in order.